It may be summertime, but even during the summer, I'm always on the prowl when it comes to Foursquare Sports. I'm in Pennsylvania. Kevin moved into his new home, and Alec is chilling like a villain in North Carolina.
Feeling like a villain. That's
Feel
never heard
like
that
a villain.
before.
That's a new one.
Well, I'm always creative with a lot of things. So we're only going to be doing 1 hour show today, but we got to play the intro no matter what. So let's play it. Let's do it.
Flag football's almost as bad as amateur wrestling.
There's a lot that needs to be fixed.
What are we even hearing about?
Tiny rant here. I can't. Brian Cashman is as dumb as a doornail.
The U.S. will beat Canada in the gold medal game. Guaranteed!
Get Anthony Volpe off of my team.
Just give me my team.
So while we are short, we are still going to provide a big punch. But welcome to Foursquare Sports, ladies and gentlemen. Episode number 53, Worldwide Phenomenon. And if you're wondering why it's called that, when you think about the World Cup, the Wimbledon finals just concluded. Congratulations to Linda Noskova for winning her first ever major Grand Slam title in a very competitive match against Machova. Very, very great match. Anyways, Matt Sirianni, Kevin Zolskog, Alec Nava. Gentlemen, how are you?
I'm feeling good, Matt. As you know, just moved into the new house this morning, so we got a lot done. Still have to move like some small stuff in, but I'll get that later. But I'm ready. Always excited to do the show with you guys.
And Alec, I know you've been digesting a lot of World Cup.
Oh, yeah, I have. Just came off of covering the England versus Norway game. That was one of the best. That may have been arguably the best quarterfinals match that I've watched so far. Even accounting for the Spain-Belgium match.
Right. The Spain-Belgium match was good in its own right. I mean, we're already at the semifinals almost. We still have one match remaining for the quarterfinals. That's Switzerland versus Argentina. Argentina we'll get into sometime at some point in the show when we get into the World Cup. But before we get into the sports talk, there's one thing we have to take care of. Now, if you follow us on Instagram and if you watched our previous episodes, we hold people accountable for when they're wrong. And Alec guaranteed that the U.S. would make the quarterfinals and beat Belgium in the round of 16. And if you watched U.S. versus Belgium, it wasn't even close. Belgium won 4-1 and continued to dominate the U.S. So, it is because of this. Alec has to do a punishment. And we're spinning it twice. Because I have decided to throw a punishment on myself because every time I do a four-leg parlay, it never works out. And it happened again with tennis because Coco Gauff decided to... Or Jessica Pegula decided not to play up to her best. But, hey, I was going to lose that parlay anyway because I had Felix Auger-Aliassime beating Novak Djokovic in 4 sets. But, yep.
You don't doubt the GOAT. You don't doubt the GOAT.
I can't anymore.
Just when I said I wanted to take the pressure off of you in the punishments.
Yeah. So, we're going to spin the wheel twice. We're going to use wheelofnames.com, which is my favorite site when it comes to selecting things. We're going to pull up the screen right here. All right, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to start off with Alec first. And if you don't know the punishments, I will list them again. Wear a rival jersey. Do 100 push-ups. Do a 3-minute plank. KFC large bucket. Wendy's 4 for 4 times 4. Tabasco punishment. Bean boozled. Kevin chooses. Wear an 80s wig.
Okay.
Kevin chooses. Well, last time we did John chooses whenever you spun the wheel.
That's right.
So Kevin chooses. Wear an 80s wig. Sing karaoke to end the show, and auto pick your entire fantasy team. The one punishment you want to avoid.
You want to avoid me too, because I know what I'm picking.
Okay. Alec, is there any punishment that you want to avoid besides auto picking?
Well, any food-related punishment. No, thank you.
Right. And you are aware that you've done Bean Boozled before.
Well, I'm aware I did Bean Boozled before, but Bean Boozled doesn't really count as part of food.
Okay, fair enough. All right, we're gonna spin the wheel right now.
So this is for Matt or Alec first?
This is for Alec first.
Me.
Okay.
Oh, no!
Speak of the devil!
Kevin, do I have to
Okay.
ask what you're doing?
All right, can you close it so I can see the options?
Okay, sure. I'll close it.
Yeah, it's closed, yeah. Okay, so wear rival jersey, 100 push-ups, 3-minute plank, gives you a large bucket. 4 for 4, Tabasco, Bean Boozled, Marty's, mixing karaoke. I'll pick it. This depends on like how charitable or uncharitable I'm being right now. Let's see. I think, you know what? I think Alec is very physical, so I'm going to give him a physical punishment. 100
Okay.
push-ups.
100 push-ups.
100 push-ups.
Okay.
Well, shit. It's been a while. Oh, excuse my language.
That's fine.
Yeah, sorry about that. This is a PG-13 show. So sorry about that. Sorry for my swear language. I apologize here. I do not want to use that here.
That's
No,
fine.
it's fine. I get it. It's a
It
punishment.
happens. It's a little slippage. Doesn't hurt anybody.
Well,
Okay.
well, it doesn't hurt anyone. It's just a reaction.
Exactly.
I'll have pity on you, Alec. I didn't pick a food one for you, but I feel like you do a lot of running, so I feel like 100 push-ups should be nothing for you.
That's true.
I mean, fair.
All right. Now we gotta spin this again for my failed 4-square 4-leg parlay. I really
Don't
gotta
land on
stop
me
doing
again,
this.
Matt, because I already know I'm picking for you if you land on me.
Oh no. Please, Lord.
Green.
Oh,
4 for 4. 5-4.
oh no.
No!
Good luck.
No!
Good luck.
No!
Good luck.
Matt, no!
So by the way,
No.
so 4 for 4, for those of you who don't know, is for $4, it's 4 items, and I think it's either you could choose like a burger or chicken sandwich, fries, nuggets, and a drink. That's the 4 in the 4 for 4. Matt has to eat 4 of those.
Yep.
That's what that means.
It'll cost $16.
Yep. So a costly one on your wallet and your stomach.
All right. So I gotta
man.
on a future episode. I gotta do this, and on a future episode, Alec has to do 100 push-ups, or Alec could do his 100 push-ups out of the way now. Afterwards.
Matt,
No, I'll wait on mine.
Matt, I would strongly suggest the drink you get is water. That's what I'll say.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah.
I can handle drinking water. I
Yeah.
hate Coke. I hate Pepsi. I hate all those sugary drinks. I will settle for water. Case closed.
Just
Hey.
have like a big plate of fries, the nuggets, and either burgers or chicken sandwich. I would do the chicken sandwich if I were you, but it's your call on that. So
All right. Fair enough.
All
right.
right.
So that was the Wheel of Punishment. On future episodes, Alec will have to serve our punishments. I'm not looking forward to Wendy's 4x4, but hey, consequences I pay. Honestly, I'm kind of glad I didn't get auto pick your entire fantasy team.
yeah, me just like when John had pity on me when he was choosing, I had pity on Alec because like auto picking is like that's just cruel if someone just picks that for you, you know.
Well,
Yeah.
at least I'll take auto picking over any food related punishments.
Right.
Yeah, I spared you there.
Okay. You did. All right. So now that we got the punishments out of the way, let's get into some World Cup talk right now. So I mentioned we're almost done with the quarterfinals of the World Cup. All the host countries are out of it. Mexico, Canada, and US are all out of it. And they were all eliminated in the round of 16 or earlier. Well, all were eliminated in the round of 16, to be honest. So we're going to get into the game that a lot of people here in America are probably really disappointed in. And again, it's the U.S. losing to Belgium 4-1 in a game where they probably stood no chance. Now, they did get their best scorer, Belgium, back, but it didn't even help. They had the one goal kick or free kick that went in the net when it was tied at 1-1. And then from there, Belgium just took over, including USA getting an own goal or giving up an own goal early in the second half, late in the second half, which was completely unacceptable. Belgium just seems to dominate the U.S. in these tournaments, and it's just kind of unfair to see, especially because we're the host country. You figured things would be a little bit different, but that was not the case. Alec, what happened?
Everything for Belgium. That Charles de Ketelaere was getting the net front goals that was needed for Belgium, and they didn't even have to use Kevin De Bruyne for this matchup. Now, I'll give them props that they did play their stingy defense and that their merry band has done the job with De Ketelaere. Romelu Lukaku got a Lego Yuri Tillemans, Leandro Trossard. This is their last gasp of air, but let's be honest, they weren't expected to go past the quarterfinals, and predictably they lost to Spain, though not predictable was the way that Spain won on a last-second goal from Mikel Merino. But this isn't about Spain, even though they're going to go up against France. The United States, yes, they got a win in the first round against Bosnia and Herzegovina. So what? The expectations were quarterfinals, not a second-round exit at the hands of Belgium. But I'm not mad about losing. I'm mad about the way that the United States lost. Let's also get this out of the way. Christian Pulisic turned over the ball 11 times in the first half. This will be his legacy moving forward. Not the only goal he scored in the final group stage game at the Qatar World Cup. Not all the stuff he did wearing the number 10 for USA, the 11 turnovers, and resting at the Copa America when he has to wear the number 10. I think that moving forward, we need to realize that there are bigger issues within U.S. soccer, and that it goes beyond the lack of culture, the lack of development, the lack of a sense of winning. And this underlying issue isn't just on the players. It's system-wide. I'll cover this later, so stay tuned for Fresh Finer Fried, everyone.
Ooh, a little preview, huh?
A little preview, that's right, because Alec is Fresh Finer Fried. I mean, I agree with a lot of what Alex said. It was a very sloppy game for the United States. A lot of turnovers. The own goal was just part of it, but like whenever they had chances, they gave it up quickly. Belgium just controlled the pace. It was just one of those things where it's just like the U.S. looked like they had no chance from the jump.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I'll say this for the United States, the only players who are safe on the roster are Balogun, Malik Tillman, Alex Freeman, and Chris Richards. That's the list. Those four get to stay for the Gold Cup next year. Everyone else, it's tryouts for everybody.
Yeah. And I think the U.S. already decided they were probably going to go in a different direction as far as coaching for the Olympic Games in 2028. So they made the decision on that.
Dude, I would be bummed if the United States loses Mauricio Pochettino.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think you can blame coaching on that game, in my opinion. I mean, like, USA just played very bad. And also, you forgot to say it, Alec, our goalkeeper sucked. Matt Freese was bad. I mean, those first two goals that he gave up, he didn't even move. And, like, it was just two random crossers and headers from Belgium where he just stood around and did nothing and just expecting either, like, a penalty or, like, expecting to be called off sides, never had it. And I'm sorry, like, Matt Freese, like, on that third goal that Belgium got, like, what are you doing? Kick the ball away. Like, what are you hesitating and, like, not kicking the ball away? And, like, Ream's right behind trying to defend it, probably the worst defense I've seen in my life. And, like, he's just kind of let the ball go underneath the rim. He's like, oh, like this, like, falling away. I mean, that was idiotic. I mean, like, USA didn't deserve to win that game, but you can't blame the coaching on this one.
No.
Yeah. You mentioned the goalie play. That's also played a part of it. Our goalie was very, very bad. I wasn't booting the ball, just rolling it, or just like handing it off by foot to one of his players that was close by. It was just like, what were you doing? Like, you weren't thinking clearly. And listen, we might not have a better goalie as far as booting the ball compared to Belgium, but you still got to boot the ball away. Play the field.
If you're a goaltender, tend a goal. Steve Dangle says this in hockey. It applies to soccer too.
It was embarrassing overall for the U.S. So now the host country will not be participating in MetLife Stadium. You're probably looking at we're waiting on Argentina, Switzerland to go. But now we're going to get into another game that actually really caught a lot of attention. So we mentioned in a previous episode that Argentina barely got by Cape Verde, which we wanted to see happen, but Argentina survived that in extra time. Then when they're facing when they're facing Egypt, you figured that maybe that they would have an easy time on this one, right? Wrong. Egypt was up 2-0 after 78 minutes, and then Argentina surged, scored 3 goals to win the game 3-2. And Alex said it better than anybody in our chat. He said the following: Egypt, you had one job.
Well, don't give me the excuses of a rigged match. Yes, that was pretty sketchy on the disallowed goal from Egypt, because we got to ask ourselves, how far back does replay go? If that's a disallowed goal, Argentina's goal should have been taken off the board. But I don't want to hear that excuse. But honestly, that's a good excuse for why Egypt lost. Yes, I said it, an excuse. Because Egypt burned themselves to the ground, because we talk about how fast African teams are. Argentina dominate possession all game long. And when you keep possession, good things happen. You know what happens when you keep possession? You score on them. It's not rocket science. Argentina kept having possession, and they played on and on and on. The chances weren't falling until late. Cristiano Romero, Lionel Messi, and then for the winner, Enzo Fernandez in stoppage time. Then came the yellows that come out one by one. But what angered me wasn't the missed foul on Argentina midway in the game. It's that they apparently missed an act of racism by the end of the game from Argentina's side. When you see a player or a coach throw up this X sign, that's not a signal. That's reporting to the referees that an act of racism occurred on the field, and play has to stop. Play never stopped. What are you doing at this point, referees? That angers me more, if anything. But nonetheless, Egypt, you had one job. Even if this went to extra time, I'm still under the belief that Argentina would have won anyway, because they kept with the possession. They kept winning the battles. They took advantage of a gassed Egypt team that already used up their energy.
Yep.
Wasted Mo Salah's last ride on an Egypt jersey like this? Oh, dear goodness.
Yeah, it was very disappointing. I mean, I will say, though, Argentina going into the match against Switzerland is probably going to be tested very much, because this is the second match in a row where they've lived on the edge and barely survived. So Switzerland, you figure they're going to come at them. They're going to do everything they can to beat Argentina to the punch. But this is the second time in this tournament where a team was up 2-0 and then lost.
After the
first being Senegal. Yep. So it's actually kind of crazy. This tournament's actually been pretty enticing to watch all across. But Kevin, what were your thoughts on Egypt's collapse?
Yeah, I think that Egypt, they let Argentina back into the game, and I think, like, if you are an inferior team like Egypt going up against a titan like Argentina, you have to keep your foot on the gas for the full 90 minutes plus stoppage time, and they didn't do that. Late on in the game, they allowed Messi and company to score on them at will, like 2 in succession of 4 minutes with Cristiano Romero and Messi, and then Fernandez with the kill shot game-winning goal in the 92nd minute in stoppage time. So I think you got to give Argentina a lot of credit for staying in there and for still fighting, even when they're down by 2 goals. But for Egypt, I get that there was some tomfoolery that they're in the game, but you have to keep your foot on the gas defensively, because you can't allow Argentina to come back on you and score like that. And people are calling it like one of the greatest comebacks in sports ever. Even Tom Brady said this might have been the 28-3 comeback. I wholeheartedly disagree, because he clearly didn't see Game 4 of the NBA Finals, did he? Because the Knicks were not supposed to win that game. And with this game, Argentina and Egypt, Argentina was not supposed to lose this game. So that's a big difference, in my opinion. So, but I digress. I think that Egypt let that match get away from them. They had it, but they allowed Argentina back into it. And Argentina ultimately just they kept clawing back and they kept clawing, and ultimately they end up winning just by a hair for the second straight match.
Yeah. So Argentina, if they're gonna make it to the semifinals, they can't play like they can't be so conservative. I think that's what was going on, and they can't get beat off the bat right away because that's what Egypt did, and then they can't let guys and you can't kind of play with your food with your opponent because that's what happened with Cape Verde, and Cape Verde almost won. So, and from what I understand, Alec, Lionel Messi and Mbappe are like the two leading contenders for the Golden Boot.
With 8 goals each, yes.
That's kind of impressive. Now, if we're looking at the field, I want to go over Alec's predictions from our chat that he said that as to who was going to make the semifinals. He got 2 games right, 1 game wrong. England did beat Norway. He had Norway winning. Spain beat Belgium, and then France advanced as well. So 3 of the final 4 have been confirmed. Alec was wrong about Norway. England won 2-1, but Alec's pretty good with the World Cup so far. So now, in terms of who's remaining, Alec, who do you think is the favorite at this point in the tournament?
I think the favorite to win it is the winner of who wins the Spain versus France match. France is just stacked all around. Defense, midfield, and on the forwards, you have the complete package of the team. Same thing with Spain, in which they're stacked on all three sides of the field. But Lamine Yamal has had himself a rather underwhelming debut World Cup. It's not his show, but rather it's the Mikel Oyarzabal's show for Spain, who has 4 goals. And Mikel Merino has 3 career international goals, 1 in the Euro, 2 in this World Cup. Every one of them has been a late game winner. And so you have someone who can score off the bench in clutch situations. That's your guy. If it's not him, Alex Baena, Nico Williams, they can step up. Rodri, Dani Olmo. And on the French side, not just Mbappe, you have Ousmane Dembele, Desiree Doué, and Bradley Barcola. They're all familiar for each other. They play at PSG. And Michael Olise controls the midfield at a pace unlike any other. He's arguably the best player in the Bundesliga. And on defense, this is the best defense ever, which I've seen from this field of any team that's left. Whether it be Theo Hernandez, Theo Upamecano, William Saliba, and even the goalkeeper, Mike Magnan. Everyone's played their part.
A lot of experts coming into this tournament had France winning the whole thing, and I feel like you got to go with how things have been going on this tournament. And I think France, if you look at the Paraguay match, if you look at the most recent match, I feel like France has been the most consistent team remaining in this field. So I can definitely see them.
Spain, it won't test them. And also get this, guys. Lamine Yamal is undefeated against Kylian Mbappe in single-game elimination tournaments.
So that's the storyline to keep an eye on. Kevin, what do you think? Who's the best team remaining?
I gotta agree. I think France is, and like you said, I think they've been the most consistent. They have the most firepower out of any team that's left, in my opinion. I do think that Alec is right. I think that Spain will provide them a good challenge, and I think France. I think they should still beat Spain by 1 goal. I do think that I have them as my favorites to win the whole thing. I'm thinking it's probably going to be a rematch between France and Argentina, if you were to ask me.
So I can honestly see that being the case. I think while Argentina's played with their food this tournament, I can probably see them making the final. But if you're asking me game by game what I've been able to see, I think France has been the most consistent. I think that France has more firepower. They've been more disciplined. They haven't really played around. Like they're beating who they're supposed to beat the way they're supposed to beat them. Argentina has barely survived 2 games. And I think they could beat Switzerland in the quarterfinal round, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I think they're going to win the whole thing. And keep in mind, Argentina is the #1 program in FIFA, #1 in the world.
Well, you have the GOAT. That helps.
That's correct. That's correct. So England will await the winner of Switzerland-Argentina. Again, I think it's probably going to be Argentina that wins this one. And Spain will take on France. The winner of those 2 matches will face in the final at MetLife Stadium, and then there will also be a 3rd place game, which is the
At
two losers
Miami.
to semifinal. In Miami. Overall, I think that even though, despite the U.S. getting eliminated the way they did and how embarrassingly they did, I think the tournament's definitely made its mark in the U.S. I think that a lot of people are really enjoying the tournament, and I think that country pride is definitely coming out more and more because the U.S. is probably one of the biggest market countries in the world, and I think that it was a great opportunity for the sport to be showcased, especially in MetLife.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing I will say though is it's in my home state of New Jersey, and if you want to get a ticket to the World Cup final, good luck.
Yeah,
Maybe like over.
I'm sure ticket prices are through the roof right now.
Oh, it's like 10K for a single
Oh
seat.
boy.
Oh, forget it. Yeah,
Forget it. Forget
forget about it.
it. Absolutely. All right. So we will touch on the World Cup, the rest of it next week. But we gotta touch on one more thing before we get into Fresh Fire Friday. Remember, this is a short episode. We're gonna get into Wimbledon, which is the tennis tournament, the third Grand Slam of the year. The women's final concluded. Again, Linda Neskova, congratulations for winning your matchup against Carolina Machova. Before that, though, I must say Coco Gauff should have beaten Machova in the semifinal. She had a 9-8 lead in the tie break in the third set. And then Coco had to spike it, but she tried to do a drop shot over the net. That didn't work out. But I will say, Wimbledon as a whole has been fantastic. I think that you saw a lot of great matches like the Novak Djokovic Felix Auger-Aliassime match was really good. Arthur Ferry, his fairy tale ride ended in the semifinals, but it was still a nice thing to see. Ultimately, on the men's side, you're going to see Jannik Sinner and Alexander Zverev in the men's final tomorrow. We will see how that pans out. But as far as I'm going to ask you about the women's final, Kev, what do you think of the women's final, and do you think that we had the right two people representing the women?
I think so. I thought it was first of all, it was very historic. It was an all Czech final between Carolina Muchova and Linda
That's right.
Noskova. And for Noskova, it was her very first Grand Slam final, and she won it. It was a great full three-setter, and Muchova gave it all she could, but she got broken early on her second service game, and that was kind of all she wrote from there. And I think you get in Muchova, like if you listen to her after she lost, she was like devastated that she lost, but like she's grateful that she got to at least she lost to like a fellow, Czech person in Noskova and a friend. And for Noskova, like you can just see her like crying and like thanking her mother like from above, and like that was really, really emotional to see. So I'm happy for her. It was a great final, and I think that Noskova, I mean, like her ranking is only going to go up from here. And so was Muchova's, and like there was obviously a couple of gaps from both players. But overall, I do think that the right people did win this or made it to the championship here, and it was a great thing to see. Now I don't know, like I said, with men's, it's always like one of three. Actually, it's one of two guys. It's only Sinner Alcaraz that usually wins these things now. But with women's, it's nice because like you don't know exactly like who is going to win on the women's side. It's always different, like pretty much every single Grand Slam. That's why women's is like a different variety. I mean, like in French Open, for example, you saw Mira Andreeva win. She got knocked out like the third, fourth round in this tournament. So like now you see Noskova win coming to the fray. Very curious to see like who comes out in the U.S. Open in a couple of months. But I really like this final, and I think that both of these women definitely deserve to be there.
I'm going to tell you this. I watched the Carolina Machova Coco Gauff match. If you remember watching that match, Machova was grabbing her ribs late in the match. She was feeling cramps in her ribs, and she fought through the pain and won. So it was very gutsy. And there was a good sportsmanship between two Czech women and two top 10 players. This is ranked numbers 9 and 10 in the world on the women's side. And this win's going to help one of them out significantly when it comes to qualifying for the WTA finals at the end of the year. So I think that this was a great final. I think that both women absolutely deserve to stay there. If you're Coco Gauff, I thought that she had very good composure for the most part. She made a couple mistakes in that final tie break, but the U.S. Open is probably going to give these women a lot of confidence. Also, one last thing I do want to touch on when it comes to the women's side. Aryna Sabalenka got knocked out in the round of 16 by Naomi Osaka. In fact, she lost in straight sets to Naomi Osaka, which was very surprising. And I think that when you look at this whole thing, well, if you remember the French Open, after Sabalenka lost in the quarterfinals, she complained and whined about potentially wanting to quit tennis. And now this comes up again. First off, Aryna Sabalenka is a baby. She's a big, big baby who screams like a banshee every time she hits the ball. It's like annoying. Like people want to see her lose, and her response after her losing was not great at all. She was like, "Well, I'm gonna have to, drink, get drunk, and forget about this as best as I possibly can." Not what you want to hear from the number one player on the women's side.
Well, I think in response to that, Matt, I think that just shows her that she doesn't have the right mentality and maturity. Now, listen, she has won a lot of Grand Slam titles. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
you have to be gracious in defeat as well if you want to be like a role model. If you're the number one seed on the women's side, look at Novak Djokovic, for example. Look at Jannik Sinner. Both, one was a previous number one and one is a current number one. Both, when they lose, they congratulate the other player, say that like they just got beat, they took it on the chin, and they'll get ready for the next slam. But with Sabalenka, she's a sore loser, simply straight up. And I think that that's definitely something that her emotional game that she has to work on if she wants to be consistent with it. Because if not, then she's gonna lose to other great players like Naomi Osaka and Coco Gauff and all these other great young women playing tennis. So I think she has to work on herself and the way that she carries herself, especially if she loses, because guess what? You can't win every match, and it happens. And even when you're number one, when Iga Swiatek was on that big tear when she was number one, she eventually lost, and she took it with grace. But you got to also be humble whenever you do win, but you also have to be gracious when you lose, and that's something that Sabalenka just simply lacks right now.
You mentioned Arena Sabalenka's success winning Grand Slams. All of her Grand Slam titles have come on hard court, whether it be at the Australian Open or at the U.S. Open. In fact, she's coming into the U.S. Open probably as the number one seed again, and she's a two-time defending champion at the U.S. Open. She's won the last 2 years. Now, you mentioned her lack of composure. This has been an ongoing thing for her over the years. When she lost to Coco Gauff at the U.S. Open a few years ago, complained about it. When she lost to Madison Keys, she broke rackets and she didn't take it well at all. And then same thing with Naomi Osaka, and same thing in the French Open. She doesn't handle it well. Even though Elena Rybakina lost at the Australian Open earlier this year, she did not handle it well at all. And if you're going to represent your sport, represent the women, you're not doing a good job at that at all. And I think that this is why people love to see Arena Sabalenka lose, because of her lack of composure and just lack of maturity.
Yeah, well, like I said, no one likes a sore loser. People like to see a player who's humble in victory, gracious in defeat. I mean, people, you can love and hate Novak Djokovic all you want. Again, I'll go back to the perfect example, but he has mastered his emotional game and his mental game. That's why he's one of the best tennis player of all time, in my opinion, and one of the greatest athletes of all time, in my personal opinion, because he's mastered all three facets of his game. His physical game, his mental game is the strongest of anyone I've ever seen, and his emotional game. Whenever he loses, he simply points out the fact that he gives massive props to his opponent, and he tells on his own mistakes and what he could have done better on, how he could improve. But with Sabalenka, if you don't have one of those core three pieces in your game, then you simply are going to be worse off. And even yes, you are going to win more Grand Slams, I have no doubt. But if you're going to complain every time that you do lose, that doesn't reflect good on your maturity levels. It doesn't reflect good on you for representing your sport, and it doesn't reflect you on being a good role model for people, young women who want to play tennis. So definitely you have to get those components in check if you want to be consistent.
And it doesn't do well for her country at all.
No,
because keep in mind who she's representing.
Belarus,
which is part of Russia. This is where it also comes into play, why people want her to lose. So you gotta actually be more sportsmanship. You gotta have it throughout the entirety of your career, after the match, before the match, everything. Now we're gonna get to the men's side of it all. I mentioned Sinner, Alexander Zverev, the final two. I hate to say it, Kev, but I feel like I'm watching Novak Djokovic on repeat whenever I see him play Jannik Sinner. I think the Australian Open was looking like a fluke, honestly. I honestly saw it during the FAA match in the quarterfinals, where FAA won some really long rallies. Djokovic started to get fatigued. Now I think at the age of 39, if you can win a 5-hour, 15-minute match at this point in your career at the age of 39, that's impressive. But there's just something about Jannik Sinner at this point in his career where it's just almost like a kryptonite.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, like Sinner and Alcaraz. I mean, those are the two guys that Novak has to get past if he wants to win, the magical number Grand Slam 25. But I also say that, like, if you watch that match, I don't think Novak necessarily played, bad at all. I mean, he only lost because he got broken 3 times. But like, if you watch that match, like Sinner's service game was just on point, like the whole match. Like Sinner only faced 1 break point the whole match, and like there's only so much that Novak can do whenever Sinner is getting every single one of his first serves in. So there's not really much you can do about it if you're Novak. And with Novak's case, I do think that like his service game was definitely flawed. He wasn't having clean service games, and that was a big issue. And he only needs to be broken 3 times. You only need to be breaking 3 times to win a match if you're on the men's side. And that's exactly what Jannik Sinner did. Now, granted, Novak kept fighting, and he was digging deep on some of those service games that he had to win, and he did. But it just came at, the worst times whenever he did have to serve. For the age thing, I will argue that I don't think age is a factor at all, in my opinion, because you look at his results. This guy is 39. He's been in either a quarterfinal or semifinal, minus the French Open of this year, every single slam, like the past 2 or 3 years. So I don't think age is a factor at all. I do think that there are flaws in his game that he needs to work on, like having clean service games against, going deeper into tournaments. His drop shot's still an issue. I do think that he needs to work on his staying on balance on some points, because whenever he gets like a tough shot coming at him, it seems like he's either off balance after he hits it, and then like the opponent gets an easy point afterwards, or it seems like he rushes to the net at like the worst times, and Novak simply can't hit a passing shot. It's an easy passing shot for the opponent. So those stuff in his game is what he needs to work on, his play. I don't think age is a factor at all, because even at the age of 39, he's still making semifinals and quarterfinals of Grand Slams, which is unheard of. Nobody's ever done that on the men's singles side. And I think that could carry over into the U.S. Open. And I will also argue that when you say that he being Sinner was a fluke in the Australian Open, I will argue that I don't think it was a fluke, because the Australian Open, I think, is Novak's his best tournament by far. And it's on the surface. Like, he's won 10 of his 24 titles on the Australian Open. And I do think he had to dig deep for that. But I think like he was going to lose to Alcaraz no matter what, even if he did beat him, because he beat him in 5 sets. And he simply had no gas in the tank for Alcaraz. I feel like what the tour needs to do, in my opinion, if they want to see Novak win a 25th slam, is they need to have Sinner and Alcaraz in the same draw, in the same quarter. And I think like Novak needs to have only Zverev and whoever else in his quarter, because I think it's kind of basically impossible for Novak if he has to go face Sinner, Alcaraz, or Alcaraz, Sinner, like in that order, if he's going to win a 25th slam. Now, he's lucky that Alcaraz didn't play in this tournament or the French Open, and Alcaraz's status is up in the air for the U.S. Open, because he still has to heal on his wrist injury, but Jannik's still going to be there. And if he's in his way, I mean, like, I like Sinner's chances, because like simply the fact of the matter is that Sinner has figured Novak out, and he's hitting his spots. And as long as he continues to have pretty much perfect service games, I mean, there's nothing really Novak can do about it. But he will be on a hard court, which is his best surface at the U.S. Open. So I do think that he might have a better chance on that surface. But if he has to face Jannik Sinner again, he can't be having, bad service games. I did think he played better this time, the last time that he faced him when he lost this time around. But he's got to be better, like with his, net games, drop shots, and obviously having cleaner service games. But Novak, I mean, I know he said he has no plans to retire, but this may or may not be the final time that we see Novak on center court. I don't believe that to be the case at all. I think he's going to play for maybe like a couple or a few more years, and then he'll call it quits. But I think that Novak, I think he'll have a better chance at hard court. But again, if he's going to run into one of Jannik or Alcaraz, he has to dig deep, and he has to be basically perfect on his service game if he wants to win Grand Slam number 25.
And one thing you got to remember, like the end is looking like it's near for Novak, because he's not participating in the 1,000 or 500 tournaments that he would usually compete in. So he's not getting these minor titles before that tune you up for these Grand Slams. So that's why his ranking has dropped to 7 over the years, because he's not competing at many tournaments. So the light is definitely at the end of the tunnel for his career, but I still think he wants to get that one last Grand Slam before he calls it a career. Now, as far as having Sinner Alcaraz on the same side of the bracket, that's easier said than done, because they're going to be 1 and 2 for years to come, and they're going to be on opposite sides of the bracket. The only possible way I can see this happening is if Alexander Zverev beats Sinner tomorrow, and then maybe passes Alcaraz for 2 in the world, and then maybe if Alcaraz is 3, we'll probably get him and Sinner on the same half of the bracket, which nobody wants. But, I think that's probably the best way Djokovic can do it.
And this is my opinion. Like, again, it's really, really hard for Novak, especially, to go through Sinner and Alcaraz in succession, and whether it's a semifinal and final or quarterfinal, semifinal, what have you. I mean, it's just hard to beat both those guys in back-to-back settings. I feel like you have to beat one of those guys to win, in my personal opinion, if you're Novak. But going back-to-back, I mean, like, that's like the toughest thing, in my opinion, for sure.
Agreed, 100%. Now, before we actually get into Fresh Fine or Fried, there is one thing that I wanted to touch on, and I have this on the agenda, and you know where this is going, and I want to get quick thoughts on this. This is in other news. So, for those of you who follow Yahoo Sports or play fantasy games on Yahoo Sports, they added another fantasy sport to the agenda. Fantasy college football. Now, this is the first time I'm ever seeing fantasy college football, and I gotta give you my perspective straight away. It's one of the stupidest things you could do, because I think that even though college football has risen in popularity in recent years, you gotta remember, when you're playing fantasy college football, you can't have dynasty leagues in college football, because these students only last 4 years, if that. And then you also gotta factor in that, like, college football, like, there's 130 programs instead of 32 teams in the NFL, and it's also like, you might get transfers here and there. Like, it's really like, why are you taking this chance? Now, when Yahoo Sports made this, I was like, you know what? I should have seen this coming, because you want to know why? College sports is getting really popular, so popular to the point where they're doing this. Alec, I'm going to ask you first, since it's been a while since we heard from you. What do you think about college football being a fantasy product?
Okay. Like, I mean, fantasy sports are getting popular over the years, but
Yeah.
I am 50-50 with this. I mean, if you want to do regular college football, okay, fine. I'll have you at that. Just you have to draft different players every year. It can't be dynasty leagues. That's my only knock on fantasy. That's a big knock on fantasy college football for this. I know of the rise of fantasy sports,
Right?
though this is getting people are getting too comfortable playing fantasy football for what it is. I mean, there's fantasy sports for everything. You got fantasy NASCAR. You got fantasy. You got fantasy soccer. You got fantasy for everything. I'm playing fantasy hockey as it is.
Wow, Kevin, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm like hit or miss with this. I mean, I can see the appeal with the rising popularity, but at the same time, it's just very risky, because there's 1,000 college programs and leagues, and again, no dynasty leagues. The fact that, like, everyone, like, these athletes can go through, like, transfer portals and, like, ruin, like, your whole roster in that way, and the fact that, like, some of these college kids aren't very bright off the field. You can get into do stupid stuff, and, like, your some players on your roster can be screwed. Imagine if you had Brendan Sorsby on your roster, and then like, like that. Again, stupid stuff. So I think, like, it's very, very hit or miss and very risky. And I think the only reason that Yahoo Sports is doing this is because of money, money, money. And I get that, like, gambling, people love to gamble, because all the gambling companies are, like, marketing this thing, like, everywhere. And, like, people are just like, oh, people will give us money no matter what fantasy sport we decide to play. Well, let's just add fantasy college football. Next, we'll add fantasy college, baseball and like, and stuff like that. Every college sport is going to be, like, gamblingable. So I feel like this is only the first step of that. And I think that, like, it's just extremely risky. But Yahoo is seeing the reward, because they know that people are going to spend their money on the gambling. It's like, Do you want to bet on Indiana repeating with no Fernando Mendoza? Come on, you know you want to. And then like people are just like are going to give in and stuff like that. So I see it as more of a negative thing, but I can understand the appeal of why Yahoo would want to do that with the rising popularity of it.
You said it best. You said I understand it, but I don't like it. That's how I feel. Like that. That's the ultimate. Like that's the way to summarize my opinion. I understand because gambling's becoming more popular, but you also don't have to do this. But you're doing it because you want to make more money. I think that it's gonna be popular in colleges and universities. Like I think you're gonna see a lot of college kids give into this. But if you want me to do a fantasy football league and a fantasy college football league all in 1 year, pass. Pass. That's too much fantasy for me.
Yeah, definitely way too much.
Way too damn much.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a little over 14 minutes left. We have one thing left to do for the short episode. Ladies and gentlemen, get your popcorn ready because
It's time for Fresh, Fine, or Fried.
this is the segment that closes out our show. I know we're only an hour long, but we had to do it because I'm in Pennsylvania and family is always important. And then we all know that. But we have Fresh, Fine, or Fried. Alec is on the hot seat this week. I'll explain the rules once again. Every week, someone from our panel is going to get a 5-minute opportunity to say whatever take is on their mind. It can be sports related. It doesn't have to be sports related. And then at the end of your take, you'll be rated on a scale of fresh, fine, or fried. Fresh meaning good, fine meaning okay, fried meaning you are insane. Alec, you're on the hot seat. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Go.
All right. So we had to talk about U.S. men's soccer. So the elimination at the hands of Belgium wasn't just an isolated case. It's the culmination of what is a bigger issue within the system, of what the consequences are, what you have to have a pay-to-play system that permeates deep on how problematic development is for soccer. It revolves around the pay-to-play and college first. Now, look, the soccer system here in the United States is built differently from the rest of the world. Usually it starts with a recreational league. But when the kids are old enough to compete at the higher levels, the system's already working against the kids. The families have to pay hundreds of dollars for 6-year-olds to play recreational soccer, thousands of dollars to play competitive soccer when they're older. And in extreme cases, if they're the elite of the elite, tens of thousands of dollars to play for elite clubs, even pursuing professional careers or college scholarships in UNC, Washington, Vermont, wherever, or even at the MLS. The most talented teenagers can go to academies of MLS clubs where they supposedly play for free, but to even get noticed by them, they have to go for an amateur club that charges annual fees. That means additional money to travel to showcase tournaments. So developing into a top player requires a degree of privilege. Chris Richards, who's our premier center back, he almost didn't get to represent the United States because his family had an awful financial situation during the Great Recession. In the United States, it's far from the only country where families have to pay for kids to play soccer, but the costs are even more expensive here than anywhere else. The unfair costs only restrict the pool of talent available. Most youth clubs, they're not connected to the professional teams of the MLS. So there are no revenue streams to subsidize the clubs other than the parents. And the club's main incentive isn't even about developing kids. It's about winning. It's about the club's reputation. Look at Norway by contrast. They banned league tables and championships until the kids have become adolescents. It's about fun when you're a kid. You don't want the competitive nature until you become older as a teenager. So other countries, youth soccer is subsidized by governments or professional soccer clubs. Look at Mexico, for example. Just recently, President Claudia Sheinbaum launched 2,000 youth soccer schools. They all have the support of every team from the Liga MX. And it has the support of the Gobierno de Mexico, the Mexican government. The goal of this program is to develop players with the opportunity to become elite talent for the Mexican national team. To find someone like Gilberto Mora, who can ascend to that status. He's 17 already. He's an elite talent. The United States hasn't done that because the federal government, under the Amateur Sports Act of 1978, has caused the federal government to not fund any Olympic sports. It's not just soccer. It's every sport. When MLS franchises began building academies in the late 2000s, the U.S. Soccer Federation has not been willing to regulate those amateur clubs. And that's not because soccer is expensive. It's not a soccer problem. It never has been a soccer problem. This is an American problem. It always has been an American problem. Whether it be the expensive costs that lead to the pay-to-play culture, to the unregulated amateur sports landscape, it has made U.S. soccer extremely disjointed and is deeply ingrained in its culture. It's built this way. And we need to have rapid changes here, radical changes in U.S. soccer, and to follow the blueprint of what other countries are, is to get rid of this pay-to-play culture, so as to develop more soccer academies so that they can learn here. The goal for children is to learn, not win at all costs. And that's why the United States hasn't been able to produce world-class men's soccer players. Oof. I'm exhausted.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Wow. I gotta tell you, that was very, very passionate. Kevin, Fresh Found Fred.
Fresh indeed. I 1000% agree. I think that the government always gets involved in like more things that they should. And I think that U.S. soccer is no different. And you mentioned that that Amateur Sports Act, that's almost a 50-year-old doctrine at this point. I think it's outdated. And I think that they should definitely need to update that in this case. And I do think that the focus should be on learning and developing rather than just winning. And I do agree with Alec that there's other leagues and countries that do this the right way. You mentioned Mexico, for example. I do think that USA definitely needs to change this whole thing. And until that happens, you're going to see the USA continue to underperform against teams like Belgium, like in the round of 16, and they're never going to get over the hump until they actually develop players that are going to contribute to and be like high class players and actually compete with these European countries. Because listen, for all the credit that us Americans give the USA soccer team, we know dang well that they are never going to be better than like these European countries, because the European countries, they know this sport and they play this sport better than we do, straight up, because they know how to develop their players properly, and they know exactly how these things work. So I think that USA, that's something they're definitely lacking, and I definitely think there's something that needs to be involved, and I think the government definitely has to get rid of that outdated 1978 Sports Act garbage, because if they keep that, then you're just going to see the same thing over and over from the USA teams in future World Cups. So absolutely, I think it's 1000% fresh.
I agree with Kevin. I think it's absolutely fresh. I'm part of the reason is because we have probably seen in America a big buzz surrounding the World Cup and other international sports like we're big into a lot of international sports that we're not great in, but we're so passionate about it, but we're never gonna win or excel in these sports because we're so out of date, out of touch, and we don't really develop or give interest into these sports. Because if we wanted to have 16, 17-year-olds invest in playing soccer or playing a sport like hockey or what have you, like, we need to see these guys, our country actually, and our federal government to an extent, give these kids the resources and program and training they need to excel. Because if we were passionate about the World Cup, we would have had this settled a long time ago, and we would have had in place to make sure that we were ready for the World Cup and confident in what we were going to do. Instead, it's the same result over and over and over again. We're getting beat by the same countries internationally. We're finishing in very bad positions in these international tournaments. And it goes in not just soccer. Look at tennis, for instance. Do you know how long it's been since an American man has won a Grand Slam? It's been 23 years.
Yeah. That's where pay-to-play comes in.
Exactly. Like, if these American men were so focused and driven on wanting to win a Grand Slam, Don't just talk. Talk is cheap. Put in the work, but we also need to give them the work. Make them earn those Grand Slams by training for it. Because right now, I feel like we're just sitting on our hands watching this go down and be like, damn, why couldn't this be better? But you know what? We're not doing our part as a country to make our athletes better.
More so on the men's side for tennis, because women's side, at least you see people like Coco Golf win a slam here and there. At least you're seeing the women like Madison Keys like playing some good tennis. Amanda Anisimova, Sophia Kenin. I can go on and on, but especially on the men's side, I mean, like, who's the best American male tennis player? Francis Tiafoe, Taylor Fritz, Tommy Paul. I mean, like, all those guys are as good as they are. I mean, like, once they get to the quarterfinals, I mean, like, they're dead after that. I mean, like, you can't compete with guys like Sinner, Alcaraz, and Novak, all being he's 39 years old. Even Zverev. I mean, like, you're not going to beat those players at the highest level unless you change something in the way you develop and the way you train. And I think that's going to continue, especially like in that case, it's a great example.
Yeah, and it even translates onto U.S. soccer. The United States best player ever was Landon Donovan, and you're not going to see him compete head to head with the likes of Lionel Messi in any case. I mean, Landon Donovan's more neck and neck with Chicharito, if you're asking me.
Right. And I feel like because we're the United States and because we're seen as this big superpower, I think our athletes are given a sense of entitlement. I think there's more so entitlement and probably greed where it's like, oh, we're from a big country, we're from a really popular country where we specialize in everything. It doesn't matter. We can do whatever our minds tell us to do. But it doesn't work like that. Because if you look at Major League Baseball, you got athletes from Japan, the Dominican Republic, Cuba, Venezuela, like all these third world countries outside the U.S. that are passionate. You got kids at the age of 12 holding sticks, preparing for baseball. You don't see that happening in the United States. Like, these kids in Little League, they get given a bat, but they don't train. They take it as a fun thing, but if they want to do this competitively, they don't think that far ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And like even with like baseball, like you mentioned, like in MLB, like some kids like from like third world countries, they already signed pre-international agreements. Like when they're like 14, 15, 16 years old. And like exactly, like you never see a US born player play that young and already get like a pre-agreement contract for an MLB team in the future to develop because they know how good this kid can play. That never happens in the U.S. And I think that's a dang shame. And I feel like if you find like a really good, like stud 17-year-old player who can like smash the ball, hit for a high average, has speed, I feel like you got to get him like in the minors, like instantly, like if he's that good. But unfortunately, that's never going to be the case because like the USA doesn't hold players in that high regard that young, but other international countries do. They see the talent already beforehand. And that's why I think international scouting, I think, is also a very important thing in any sport in this interest. I mean, look at Lamine Yamal. That he's a teenager. I mean, that kid is playing unbelievable, and he's in a great World Cup his first time around. And you're seeing exactly why. It's because of international scouting and the development process of the internet of those countries are just far superior than the US's, and that's just a known fact.
Exactly. I could not agree more. Alec, one more thought about this?
Oh, yeah. We speak of teenagers. Look at Gilberto Mora. He's getting offers from the Premier League. That's how uber talented this young kid. And he just graduated from high school, too.
The U.S. has a lot of work to do. If they really care about their sports, they would do the right thing. Anyway, that was Fresh Friday Friday, and this is the episode from Kevin's Comics, Alec Nava. I'm Matt Sirianni. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Foursquare Sports. Alec has talked to us before the show that maybe we might get a new face on here. We are going to talk to John because we love John and we want to work things out. We're going to keep what's behind the scenes, but we might bring on someone new, according to Alec. We're just going to see what happens, but we'll keep that under wraps for now. But before we go, we got to promote the fantasy football draft kit for Great North Sports for 2026. Stop chasing, start winning. You want to be prepared for your dynasty leagues and fantasy leagues for football in 2026? This is the guide for you. All right, but anyways, we'll be back next week. This has been Foursquare Sports, which is sports at score. Take care, everybody. Have a good day. We will see you next week. God bless you all. See you soon. Bye.
Hi, everybody. Christopher Mad Dog Russo here. And you know what I do? Four Square Sports on Sunday night, 6 to 8, with all those parts of the country taken care of. Listen all the time. You got it. Mad Dog on Mad Dog Unleashed. Listen to my guys. Listen to my guys.